KPPQ-LP Ventura, 104.1 FM, and we're in the Women's Room, where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good. A wildfire burned its way through Ventura on the night of December 4th, decimating Hillside and hilltop communities and leaving everyone in the community shaken and terrorized. For many months, Venturans have been dealing with the recovery. First smoke and particulate-laden air, and then trying to recuperate from the anxiety produced when we are confronted with a primal fear, like fire. I'm still checking for fire at our upstairs window, which gives a view of the foothills east toward Santa Paula, and I'm very grateful indeed to still have that window. My guest today is Roberta Davidson, a Hillside resident here in Ventura, and a mother, grandmother, and RN who has been working at Community Memorial Hospital since 1995. Hi, Roberta.
Hi, Kathy.
So happy to have you here to tell your personal story of the fire of 2017, which we will be talking about for years, and the story of the challenges you and your husband, Patrick, are faced with and are still struggling with. Before we get to your fire story, and because we are in the women's room where we feature women's stories, I'd like to have you tell us a little about yourself. Now, you worked for a production company, but switched to nursing. Tell us about your decision to leave your work in a production company to return to school in the human services field.
Well, believe it or not, I met my husband doing production work, and so that was always, where we started. It was, great for a while, and then I actually took a break from working to run a stable in Griffith Park.
Wow.
I had 65 horses on property and trainers, and
you ride?
I ride,
Oh.
and I was doing show jumping all through my late 20s, early 30s.
Oh, wow.
And I would have veterinarians come in and work with the horses, and I would have to help them and work with them. And I sort of got interested in the whole health aspect of it, and thought, well, if I'm going to be dealing with shots and that kind of care, I'd like to know what I'm really doing. And at any rate, I just kind of gravitated back and decided I wanted to do something that I thought was meaningful and was helpful to the community, and nursing seemed to fit that bill. And so then I had to go back to college and take some prerequisites, and then I went to Moore Park College here in Ventura County. And
so did you have your children at that time?
Well, what I did was I didn't work for about a few years. So I waited until my youngest was going to kindergarten, and that freed me up, mornings and some time so that I had a space in my life to fit in school, and still manage to, do the home things and get the kids to all their activities and whatnot.
It's a juggling act.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And especially I heard my oldest daughter talking to my younger one day, overheard them talking, and she said, the younger one says, "Oh, isn't it great that Mommy's going to be a nurse?" And the older one said, "No, you don't understand. She's not going to be home to bake cookies anymore, and she's not going to pick you up and take you to things." And I went, "Oh my, well, this is not going to, I'm going to have to do some work here to make sure that, they don't feel unsupported."
Right. Yeah, I think
that I've abandoned them.
I think, many of our listeners feel exactly the same way. Always juggling to take care of everything.
Well, and I think I must have spoiled her, but you know what? She's turned out great.
Oh, that's good. So, are you a native Californian?
I am. I'm a rarity. I'm second generation.
Oh, wow.
My parents were born here, and so.
Wow. So, have you had experience with wildfires before?
Well, I think anybody that grows up in Southern California, there's been, we're all know that this is a possibility. And I grew up in the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains, up in the La Crescenta, Montrose area, if anybody knows where that is. And there I've had times where we were surrounded, all the hills would be on fire, the Verdugo Hills, up the San Gabriel Mountains. To be, as a child, I remember being in my backyard, being, terrified. And one year my brother had, this was when I was probably high school, college age, my older brother had bought a house very close to the hills. And I spent an afternoon, masked and up on a roof, spraying it down with a hose.
Oh, wow.
So you certainly have lived through that.
Uh-huh.
And so, that possibility is always in the back of your mind. But I think what really struck me about this one was it just seemed the speed was, the magnitude and the speed with which it kind of overcame us was just breathtaking. I've never experienced anything like this one.
Yeah, well, they said it was burning an acre a second.
Yeah, they were saying yeah, it was football. Said it was going a football field a second.
Oh,
it was
wow.
just incredible.
So did you learn anything from your early experience that helped you with this fire?
Well, I think maybe knowing that you're going to have to really watch the air quality and certainly the cleanup. I'd had to clean up a lot of ash over the years and stuff. I mean, this now is way beyond anything I've ever had to deal with. So I don't know if you're ever truly prepared for this sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, really. Really. How long have you been a Ventura resident?
We moved to actual Ventura City in 2010.
Uh-huh.
I've lived in Ventura County since 1989.
Oh, right. You've been
Yeah.
around a while.
Yeah.
So, well, tell us where your house is and what happened the night Ventura was on fire.
Well, we live at the very top of Villa Arroyo in the Ondolando area. If people kind of know where that is, and we're one of the last cul-de-sacs at the very top.
Uh-huh.
And that night, actually, I was at our neighborhood book club meeting, and we're all kind of having a good time, and somebody got a notice on their phone saying that there was a fire in Santa Paula, and of course it was very windy, and we were like, oh, that's going to be bad. Oh, it's bad for those poor people in Santa Paula, never thinking it was going to be affecting us so quickly. And then
Right.
a little while later, we were breaking up, and a husband came by and said, you know what, you guys ought to think about evacuation. And we're like, what? We were like totally shocked. So I went home and told my husband, maybe we ought to think about it,
Could you see it at that point?
Well, it was kind of a distant glow at that point. It was kind of because we're up against the hill, so I don't see east well. But there was kind of above the mountain, but we're right up against the mountain, and right above us you could kind of see this glow in the sky. And I had just finished decorating the Christmas tree, so I had these big plastic bins that were empty, luckily. And we weren't panicking, but I just started gathering, papers. A lot of people now have talked about, I guess some disaster experts have talked about the P's that you have to, when you're going to be panicked like that, think about the P's as you're, so you're talking about pets and people. And then of course it's papers, passports, prescriptions. Exactly. So you follow, but, and without really having that plan, that's kind of what we did. We took some pictures. I put our passports, I put some important papers, insurance papers, all that in a bin. And then it started getting real. We started seeing embers flying, over the hill. And I went and woke up neighbors, because by this time the power was out, so we're in the dark.
Right.
And I went and woke up some neighbors, had to pound on doors, to really get people awake and get us moving. And by that time, I think the first policeman, had come down the cul-de-sac with a loudspeaker kind of a thing. And now it's getting real. So we're packing up the cars, and we're, getting ready and going to leave. And by that, and then a short time later, this whole thing occurred probably within a half hour, I would say. Within a half hour, I had the firemen at our door saying, you have to leave now.
Oh, wow.
And by that time, when we were pulling away, the fire was literally bearing down on our house.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so it was like, whoa.
What were your thoughts? Or did you have any thoughts?
By this time now, you're really in the, we've got to get, you're kind of looking around thinking, what more can I take? And thinking, you kind of lock up, because you're just thinking, I don't even know where to go. You're just looking at all the things you've accumulated over years.
Right.
And it's like, well, I can't take any of this. It's too late.
Right.
And you just have to go.
You're making me relive this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
and the last thing, honestly, I did was I was running by, and we have a kind of a wine storage area, and I knew I was evacuating to a friend's house, and the last thing I did was I said, I'm taking the good stuff.
I can bring a house guest.
I said I can't show up empty-handed, so I grabbed a bunch I grabbed as much wine as I could carry, and off to the car, and off I went.
That was a good last thought. So, wow. I just, I'm reliving the kinds of things that
it
were
was just
also...
because it was turmoil, and one of my daughters said, Mom, you're the only people we know that evacuate with wine. But it's important things in life.
Well, and also bringing that house present. Okay. Well, okay. You got away. You went to Camarillo.
We did.
So tell us when you're finally able to return to find out if your house had survived or not.
Well, this was kind of neat. So when we drove away, and then when we were evacuating, there was kind of gridlock because there's only a couple ways out of the Ondolando area, and we sat for 45 minutes not moving.
Oh.
While the fire's bearing down closer and closer.
Were you in the same car? You had two different...
My husband was just behind me. We took two cars.
Yeah.
And amazingly, I have to give my neighbors a lot of credit. Nobody was screaming at anybody. Nobody was panicking. Nobody was honking. We all stayed in line because you really needed to leave room for emergency vehicles to get up the other side of the street, so it wasn't like people were trying to go around. Right. And so anyway, by the time we left, we thought the house was gone. We just assumed, you just have to assume that.
Right.
And the next morning, you're watching how terrible things are, and our older daughter noticed that there was a reporter that was driving around the neighborhood, kind of filming. She sent him a tweet and said, here's my parents' address. Can you go by and see the house? And amazingly, he did. He took a picture, and she sent us a picture of the house later that next morning on Tuesday the 5th, December the 5th.
Wow.
And we're looking at it, and you kind of can see that smoke is rising from around the house, but the house, at least the front of the house, is amazingly intact.
Oh, wow.
But then we looked more closely at the picture, and we said, but why is our garage door in the middle of the driveway?
Oh, no. So it burned the garage.
So the garage had caught on fire, and the whole back of it had collapsed, and so we had substantial damage. But amazingly, the bulk of the house is there, and the whole house is there. Oh. It's kind of a miracle. We were very lucky.
Yeah, really. So when you got back, what did the area look like? When did you actually get back to Ondolando?
Then the next, it would be Wednesday morning. They were still allowing people. You couldn't drive up, but you could walk up. Oh. So we parked down by like Poinsettia School, and we walked up, and weirdly, the air quality was better that day than it was days after. It was sort of like as the fire continued to burn, and sometimes what they call the smoke plume, as the winds would die, would actually drop on us. But that day the winds were still blowing pretty well, so it was blowing the smoke away from our area. But it's just stunning because I could not get my brain around how many houses were gone. Whole cul-de-sacs, not one house left. And you're looking at friends' houses that are gone, people you've been at parties at their house, and you just can't wrap your head around the enormity of the loss. And so you're just sort of, and then just the whole, the trees and just everything is just gone. You just can't hardly fathom it.
It takes a while for it to sink in. Yeah. I know we didn't even know the fire bypassed us because we're surrounded by orchards and we're just below Foothill. And we didn't know. I thought the fire had gone over the hills. We didn't know till the next morning, about 6 o'clock. We got up. We had no power, so we went to eat breakfast. And I saw the hills, just a black fog hanging over. It was just, I said, oh, Bill, look, it all burned.
Well, and I think a lot of people thought it had kind of like, because it was, burning east to west, and it kind of like gone through. But then this fire kind of, I still don't quite understand the dynamics of it, but somehow it kind of like came around again. And it was really a lot of the houses that burned in our area burned the next morning.
Oh.
Not late that night, but later on.
I didn't know that.
Depending on where you were on the hill.
Uh-huh.
And so it's so random and hit and miss, where you'd have, one friend, her houses on both sides of her across the street all burned, and her house is fine. And you just don't know this randomness, why one house is okay and one house isn't.
Right.
We had, on my cul-de-sac, actually only one house burned to the ground, and it's in the middle of things. It's not like on the edge of the hill. It's sort of like, how did this happen? You just kind of can't wrap your head around it.
No, I think we're all still having trouble doing that. Well, we're just going to have to stop with your story for a moment here and take a station break. This is KPPQ-LP Ventura, 104.1 FM, and we're in the Women's Room, where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good. My guest today is Roberta Davidson, a Hillside resident in Ventura, who is here to tell her story of the wildfire of December 4th, 2017. And we're back, and we were just going over the terrors of that night. To just move on a bit. So where are you living now? Assuming your house was unlivable.
Yeah, it's still, we're still not back in it, and it seems like an awfully long time. If you had told me back then I still wouldn't be back in the house, I would have said, "What? You're crazy." But it takes a while, and we're living down in Oxnard by the collection. So we thought, well, if you can't, might as well do something different.
Right.
So we're kind of having the urban experience, slightly urban. We can walk to shops and restaurants.
The theater over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's okay. We're not suffering.
So it's one positive thing.
Yeah.
So you don't know how long it'll take for you to get back into your house?
Well, frankly, we still don't have a permit.
Oh my gosh.
It takes a while. It is not something you can rush, and there's a lot of people in line. And we're hoping it's going to come in within the next week or so, and then we can really get rebuilding.
Right. Has some rebuilding started up at Ondo?
Well, yes. Not only people that are partially damaged, I would say. No, it takes a long time for people to get their architectural plans in and all that. So, all the lots, at least in our area, are all cleared. The lots are cleared, and that's made a huge difference in terms of livability.
Right.
You don't have the ash blowing around. It kind of gets rid of the smell a little bit. It feels, and then with the rains and whatnot, it just feels like things are more stable and not quite as toxic.
Right.
And so slowly people, I think the permits are coming through, and people are starting to replace roofs, and I think at first the emphasis was on people who could still live in their homes up there. They were dealing with smoke and cleaning their homes and getting the toxic kind of things out of the air and stuff, and so that was happening very quickly.
And we saw, hundreds of dump trucks going back and forth along Foothill, taking out the debris.
Yeah, that's Cal Fire was doing all that mostly.
And was that all polluted?
Well, yeah,
chemically.
Well, a lot of those homes, at least the homes in our area, a lot of those homes were built back in the '60s, so they had asbestos things in them in the walls, and old pipes, and any time a house burns, you've got plastics and metals and all the chemical things we might have, cleaning products, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So you think about what's in your house, and once it all kind of melts, and it's pretty toxic.
Yeah.
But they keep scraping until the ground is clean.
Wow.
So it's certainly a lot better now than it was right after the fire.
Yeah. So my neighbor said to me, she happened to be away when the burn. I woke up the person she had staying in her house. She said, well, if it's going to burn, I hope it all burns down. Do you think sometimes it'd be better to have the entire house burn down rather than try to piece it back together again? Or is the verdict out on that yet?
Yeah. No, I have good friends that have lost their houses, and when I see what they're, not to be able to have any of your, trust me, they wish their houses had been partially burned as opposed to full burn. You can still salvage pictures and mementos and, things. So to say you wish it all burned down, I don't think so.
Right.
And there's part of me that, it'd be nice to have a brand new house, but I'm so lucky to still, have, things that were my grandparents or whatever, and other people lost all that.
Because each time you remember one item, an item, you go through the whole grieving process again.
Absolutely. Even like your favorite pair of jeans or that top you always put on when you got home and wanted to be comfy.
Right, right, yeah.
Sometimes you miss those things more than you do, the silver candlesticks.
I grabbed a few of those things on my way up down the stairs.
Well, no, one friend was laughing because when she evacuated, the only thing she could think to do was she took the laundry basket.
Oh.
But in a way, the laundry basket might be filled with things that you actually like to wear.
Yeah, right. And need to wear.
As opposed to something in the back of the closet you hadn't worn in years.
Right, right. That's funny. So what's the most frustrating part of restoring your life back to normal?
I think for me personally, the way I look at the biggest loss I feel, since my house is still, relatively intact, the biggest loss for me is the natural landscape. One of the things that attracted us to that area was the mature landscaping, the trees, it felt very green, and it's scorched earth. And then what was sort of left, Southern California Edison's done away with the rest. They've came through, and anything that was anywhere near a line or a pole, they just chopped it down. So, and we had already lost, quite a number of trees to drought and beetle and that kind of thing. And now the fire's just pretty well polished off so many of our big trees. And it's like that, trees cool our environment. They provide, space for wildlife and birds. And I that's what just really bothers me when I go up.
Yeah, because it's not going to be replaced for a very long time. Yeah.
No, I'm probably not going to live to see
that
those kind of trees.
40-year-old tree or something. Yeah. Well, you mentioned when I asked you to be on the show if your story was important enough because you didn't actually lose your home. But I think what you're experiencing reflects what many Venturans are experiencing to a greater or lesser degree. Why do you kind of feel that you shouldn't be complaining?
Well, when you compare yourself to other people who really didn't, they had the clothes on their back when they left, and then trying to, you might not even have insurance papers or know what your coverage was, and they're trying to deal with all that. Some people are maybe don't have a strong partner to help them with it. I'm lucky because my husband has been we're pretty equal, and we can each take things and work together.
Right.
If you're by yourself trying to navigate all this, it would be
pretty
daunting.
Yeah.
And so I try not to. I know how lucky we were, but on the same time, you're still just driving by it and having to go up there all the time. I know a lot of people don't like to even go up there.
Yeah, I can
the people that have lost their
it.
houses. It's just it's too much to go up and really, deal with. The loss is too overwhelming.
Right. Well, probably less painful than losing a loved one. Losing your home or having to leave, as in your case, because it's unlivable, has got to be right up there at the top of a stress level chart.
Oh,
So
sure.
What kinds of things have you been doing to kind of take care of yourself?
Well, I think like anything, you need to make sure that you're doing those things that help you heal. For me, I've been doing hiking. I go into the Santa Monica Mountains because it seems to be better down that way right now than up this way. I do exercise and yoga. Work actually helps. It's good to go to work, I think, and be able to, get your mind on something else.
Right. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. Are you in touch with some people who actually have lost their entire house?
Oh, sure. Because I mentioned that I was at my book club the night of the fire. Well, we're a pretty tight group, and 4 people out of that group were total losses.
Oh my gosh.
2 of us are partial, and we all live in the area, so everybody has had to deal with evacuation, clean. Even if your house was left, you have lots of smoke damage and other issues, and everybody's dealing with it. And it's been very cathartic, actually, to kind of come all back together and support each other, and just be there.
Yeah.
And we sometimes we pledge, like the last time we got together, we thought, okay, we're not going to talk about the fire. Let's just not talk about the fire.
But you can't.
But it always comes back around, as much as you try.
Right. Well, it was such a big traumatic event. Yeah. So was a lot of the stuff, or the things you had in the house, are they damaged or are they pretty okay? Just
most things can be cleaned, in one way or the other. Right now, I don't even know where my things are. They all got taken out by a cleaning company, and they're somewhere, they do a special cleaning to get smoke out and stuff like that. So there's a lot of special companies that do help you with this.
Oh, that's good.
Which is nice.
And insurance covers that.
Insurance covers. So our insurance is, I have to say, I'm not going to complain about my insurance coverage or company. They've been terrific.
That was one of the questions I had. It seemed like they had big tents set up at shopping malls, all the various insurance companies. So
ours is a smaller insurance company, but they've been pretty responsive. We haven't gotten a lot of pushback on things. They seem to be, their emphasis seems to be in getting you whole and getting you back in. But there is a navigation element to it. Don't get me wrong. So, and you kind of have to wend your way between adjusters and people. So it's a process. But so far so good. I keep my fingers crossed.
Well, that's good to hear. I don't have the same experience, but some years ago, my husband, we had sold our house. We were going to come to California, and then he got jobs in various other cities. So our things were in storage for 3 years, and we lived in various rented, furnished places, and while that has its own issues, I did find it kind of freeing to just be, not have all that stuff to worry about. We just had what we could fit in our 2 cars, and that was it.
No, that is true. I have, I'm pretty limited on my wardrobe, and it's like I just keep recycling the same things, and it's sort of okay right now. It's like I'm on an extended vacation.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So have you did mention a few urban living that you did because you are living away now. But have you come up with any, something new you learned, or have a different perspective on things?
Oh gosh, that's kind of more deep.
You don't have to answer.
You certainly come down to what's really important, and we all kind of look back on that night and think how lucky we all were that pretty much they evacuated a lot of this city. I think like a quarter of the city or something like that, with really only the one poor lady that drove off the road that night.
Right.
Other than that, no loss of life occurred. And then the one fireman that unfortunately horribly died, a few days later.
Right.
But that night, I think maybe some of us, we already had the lesson of Santa Rosa, California up in the north, and you saw what happened. And boy, everybody just left. I mean, we left.
Right.
My husband and I talked about it later, and I said, did you ever consider staying? And, pulling out the hose and thinking we were going to fight this fire. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, hell no. We were just like, we're out of here, but that is the amazing thing, that we're here.
Uh-huh.
We're supporting each other. We didn't lose our lives. We're alive and well. And that means that good can always come again.
Right.
The rest of it is stuff. And
Right.
you kind of have to, and I think the fact that I could look around at everything that night and kind of go, well, I had kind of made my peace with it. It's gone. And you can't take it with you.
Right.
And I think I'm much less tied to stuff than I was before.
Right.
That's.
Right. I think that's true. And those are wonderful words to leave our listener with. And we're out of time. So, Roberta, thank you so much for telling your story.
Well, Kathy, thank you for having me on.
Oh, well, it's, a night none of us will forget. And I'm really glad you shared it. And best of luck getting it all back together.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy.
You're welcome. This is KPPQ-LP Ventura, 104.1 FM. And we're in the Women's Room, where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good.